Well, good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I can see from your chat there is a lot of people who we know very well. I'd like to say hi to Party from the NREL, people also from Alfanar, of course, DLR and Almeria, CMI, NG, and a very long number of people that are, we all know and love. So welcome. We are here today to talk about this project that has captured our attention and our imagination for a very long time, the Noor Midelt project one. And as you know, I don't think I need to let you know this because you already know it, but I am going to. Of course, this is a project that is happening right now, it's taking place right now. Therefore, there are things that our speakers are not going to be able to comment on, okay? Just because there are NDAs in place, there are things that can be talked about. So this is just so that you know and be prepared for this, because it was definitely going to happen. However, we have two super expert speakers today. It's coming straight from them, from the people in the middle of all this project. So you are going to be able to find out a lot about this project and what it means, for the renewable energy world going forward. And at that, before I actually ask them to introduce themselves, I'd just like to remind you that this is a MENA CSP Knowledge and Innovation Program that has put this webinar together, and it's a program by the World Bank Group. And I hope you all have questions for us that you can send and that we can answer as much as possible. Please do so using the Q&A box. So, okay, let's start with the speakers. I'd like to ask Abdelrahim, please, can you unmute yourself and introduce yourself shortly? Most people will know you already, but just in case we have some new people who may not. Just unmute yourself.
Yes, good afternoon, good morning for people that were this morning. I am Abdelrahim Jumrani. I am the engineering director of Mazen. Before joining Mazen, where I am developing renewables, I have been developing rural electrification in Morocco and some other activities in private and non-private companies.
And Abdelrahim, you've been involved directly, right, in this particular project with Mazen?
Yes, in this project, we imagined it in the beginning, some years. I think it was in the beginning of 2015. And it was a long process to arrive here. And we are now waiting, of course, for the closing of this project and the construction in order to be sure that it is a project that will anyway participate to change mind about renewables.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Abdelrahim. Where are you joining from today, Rabat or Casablanca?
Yeah, we are in Rabat. I am in my office with some colleagues, the team that was in charge of Midelt.
Okay. Excellent. Okay, so we're going to hear about Midelt. We're going to hear about also the Nour complex. And of course, Manuel, please could you introduce yourself? Many people would have known you already, but of course, tell us about your role here.
Yeah, hello everybody. This is Manuel Millán. I'm part of the World Bank. I'm a senior engineer in the World Bank in the Africa region. Before joining the bank, I worked extensively in CSP, either in Spain and many other places. Since I joined the World Bank like 6 years ago, I'm part of the CSP teams in general, mainly in Morocco, where we have been financing the Nour and now the Midelt, and some other initiatives like the Knowledge and Innovation Program that Belen just mentioned. So yeah, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Manuel. Where are you today? You're not at home today. Where are you?
No, I actually, you can see here my hotel room in Freetown in Sierra Leone.
Excellent. Okay, so you can see we're very mobile. This is the good thing about an online session. Abdelrahim, I'm going to ask you to connect your presentation. I think actually Araceli is putting it up for you to get that ready. And I have a few messages for the people out there, and I've seen a lot of well-known names, including some of our consortia colleagues at the MENA CSP-PV. So welcome everybody. So we are recording this session, okay? We are gonna send you the materials, so you don't have to worry about it. You will receive an email from the MENA CSP-PV with all of this information. And without further ado, I'll just like, Araceli, please, if you could put up Abdelrahim's presentation so that he can begin, that would be great. And as I said, we will have a few questions for Abdelrahim and for Manuel. I will ask them first, and then, you know, you're welcome to send your questions through the Q&A box. Araceli?
Yeah, well, thank you. While waiting for the presentation, it's here. I would like first to thank ETA and MENA CSP Knowledge for the opportunity that they gave us. I would like also to congratulate the EDF, Masdar, Green of Africa consortium that have won this first project, and also the Mazen's team that has worked hard during 4 years in order to have this project now ready for construction. I would like also to thank all other bidders for participating in the project, and the Moroccan stakeholders and the financing institutions. Also, the project is financed by not less than 7 financing institutions: the World Bank, the African Development Bank, the European Investment Bank, European Community, KfW, AFD, and CTF. So you see that it is a complex project. Now,
Araceli has told me you were sharing your own screen. Sorry, my mistake. So can you share it for us? So that, sorry,
it is not shared?
No, that you have to share it, that you're sharing it.
Okay. So now it's okay?
Yeah, go for it. Just share the screen and show us the document. We can't see it. Okay, otherwise I can share.
Can you see the presentation?
No. No, I cannot. Hang on. I'll share it myself. Don't worry.
Okay.
Done. It's going to be easier if I do it, I think, in this case. There we go. I'm going to go to the beginning. Just tell me when you want to pass it. We have the first screen now.
Okay. So, okay. So I will just present the project. As Belen has said, I cannot talk about some specific design of the project because we have signed confidentiality and we cannot talk about some points. But I hope that what will be presented will be interesting for people. Let me first. Sorry, I cannot move it. Let me first present in what Morocco is doing. By 29, Morocco decided to develop 42% of its electricity by renewables, 14% from solar, 14% from wind, and 14% from hydro. An objective which shall be without any problem reached by 2020. And by 2015, during the CAP 21, Morocco decided to go up to 52% of its energy that should be developed under renewables. Noor Midelt 1 is the construction, is one of the projects that shall enable us to reach such object. Who is Mazen also, to let people, I think that a lot of people know who is Mazen, but I would like to present Mazen. Mazen is a private company, legally a private company, but owned by government or government institutions in Morocco. It is owned by 4 organisms, which are ONE, the utility, 25%, 2 funds, the Hassan II Fund and the Energy Investment Society, 25%, and of course the government, the Ministry of Finance for 25%. Can I have the next, please? I'm sorry. No, next. Yes. Before launching the renewable program in Morocco, an important legal framework was developed in order to allow Mazen to develop the projects. So Mazen was created by a law by 2010, the law 57, 2010, that only for solar. Then after, this law was amended by 2016 to allow Mazen to develop all renewables in Morocco. And some agreements was signed between Mazen and the utility in order to sell all electricity that is generated by Mazen to the utility, and also with the government that will, let's say, cover the gap when there was a gap for renewable energies. So the customers, the users of electricity, will not need to pay anything for renewable electricity from the beginning in Morocco. Our first projects was PPAs. The first one was the solar complex of Ouarzazate, which is one of the greatest projects, multi-technology of solar energy. Can I have the next? Okay, you can see here this project. It is a project of 4 power plants. The first one is Nour 160 megawatt parabolic trough CSP with 3 hours storage and wet cooling. Why I'm talking about this, because Mazen decided to not more develop any wet cooling, because we are developing our projects in desert, and water have a lot of value in these regions. That was one of the first decisions we took after developing Nour 1. So Nour 2 is also parabolic trough power plant, 200 megawatt, 7 hours storage capacity with air cooling, dry cooling, and Nour 3, 150 megawatt, 7 hours storage, and also with dry cooling, which allow us to, let's say, have to use less than 10% of water that is needed for such power plant. Nour 4 is a PV power plant. It is a 75 megawatt. And it was calculated, let's say, to cover mainly the auxiliaries consumptions of the CSP power plants during day. We have developed, of course, PV. We have developed also wind, but I will not talk about all these projects. You can find it on the net. And I will go to how we are, what is the Mazen's vision for developing renewables. The next, please. We think that the base of our energy in Morocco should be mainly PV and wind. And you can see here a load curve with PV and wind and coal. You have coal in gray, and I hope that you have the same colors, and wind in green, solar in yellow, and hydro in blue. And you can see that during day, if you want to develop renewable energies, wind and PV mainly, and to continue to develop base load power plants, coal power plants, for example, it is the case of the existing power plants in Morocco, you will have to curtail sometimes renewables or the base load power plants, which means very, very high costs. So our first constat that it is not possible to develop renewables with the existing mix of energy with a lot of power plants at base load. We understand that it will be done on time in order to be sure that the the fossil fuels power plants have reached their lifetime and that we can replace it with renewables. But at least we should not continue to develop baseload power plants from now if we want to develop the maximum of renewables. So that is the first result of our analysis on renewables and conventional, what we will call conventional mix, as it was developed during the last century, which lead us to a conclusion that as renewables cannot respond all demand, at least wind and PV, we need something else. We will need storage, and we will need also to define how these technologies will complete each other. What are the synergies between these technologies, between wind and PV first? And PV and wind will be the maximum developed technologies in Morocco for a simple reason that we have the lowest cost of energy. But unfortunately, we will not guarantee the capacity. And that means that we will need something else. And I have the next, please. On this basis, we analyzed first, what are the synergies in Morocco, of course, between wind and solar, PV. And the second analysis was what are synergies between sites, between solar PV sites and wind sites. And we could find a lot of synergies. For example, for wind, that is very, very intermittent. With one power plant on one site, you can have until 1 week without any energy production. When we are using 3 or 4 sites in Morocco, we are sure to generate every hour during the year. We are not generating the same capacity, of course. We are generating low capacity for some hours and high capacity for some other hours, but we are sure that there are some synergies that allow us to generate the maximum of useful energy. We also have analyzed this for PV, and it was the same result. And for PV, it was even better because with 10 to 15 sites, we are having a flat load curve during day, which means that for PV, it is really, really interesting, and the synergies between sites are very high. Now, the synergies between PV and wind also are very important because you have wind during night, this is the minimum. You don't have, you cannot generate from PV, and when you are generating the maximum with PV, it means that the density of air is lower and you are generating less using wind. So there are synergies also. What we have done is that we have compared what we can generate from about 30 power plants, wind and PV, and what is the energy that we will be able to respond, taking into account the needed capacity of demand, and we can reach 70 to 80% of energy that could be responded to only using PV and wind. That means that we need 20 to 25%. Unfortunately, in Morocco, hydro is not very high. We can develop a lot of capacity. We have a lot of mountains, but the energy that we can generate from hydro will be low anyway. We can generate 2 to 3 terawatt hour per year, not more. Morocco is not known as a very good country of hydro. So we will need storage. But I will conclude on this first part of this slide that the main interest in storage is the storage what we have done with synergies. We are not we will not need to finance such storage, just using synergies between our technologies. Now for storage. As it is now, I will not want to talk about what will happen in the next years. Technologies are evolving, and we don't know how they are evolving. And just to give an example, who would say by 2010 that PV will be now at less than 5 cents even in Germany? Nobody. So we cannot say what will happen in batteries and what will happen in thermal storage energy or in hydro pump, and if there is no other technology that will be developed. But now, what we know about this market is that batteries are very, very good for low time storage. Until 2 hours, 2 hours and a half, it is very, very interesting, because for batteries, to store energy will cost high until now, while to transform this DC energy in AC energy will not cost anything. The inverter's cost is so low, though, that it is very interesting to have batteries as a capacity storage and not a lot of times storage until now. For thermal energy will not cost a lot to store thermal energy. The cost is very, very low. But unfortunately, also to transform thermal energy in electricity, we will need steam turbine, and the steam turbine will cost a lot. So to transform thermal energy in electricity will cost a lot, and we will need a lot of hours, more than 5 at least, 5, 7, 8, 9, and even 14 or 15 hours storage capacity in order to be able to use the maximum of hours during the year the steam turbine, and to reduce the cost linked to the steam turbine. The pumped hydro, I let it at final, even if it is the more mature technology. It is well known all around the world. It is used all around the world. But we need sites. And as long as we will have sites in Morocco, we will develop pumped hydro. Pumped hydro for 5 hours is demonstrated, and we can use it without any problem. We have already first power plant in Morocco, 470 megawatt, 5 hours storage, and we are developing 2 other power plants for pumped hydro storage. So here the objective is to demonstrate that, like during the last century, we needed nuclear, we needed coal, we needed gas, we needed fuel oil to create a mix, an energy mix to generate electricity. At the moment it is needed. We could not use nuclear or coal during peak hours, during some hours per day, because the cost will be just enormous. And we could not use fuel oil as a base load, because even in this case also the cost will be very, very, very high. So in the last century, for electricity, we needed an energy mix of all these technologies to generate electricity. I didn't talk about hydro, but hydro was used a lot because it will continue to be used, and hydro is just magnificent as a storage solution, because you have water in a dam and you can use it when you need electricity. So for the this century, we think that in order to be sure that we will be able to use the maximum of renewables while having the lowest cost of electricity, we will need also to create a mix of wind, solar, hydro in Morocco, geothermal, and biomass, and all other solutions in countries when there is a potential. And to have storage in order to be able to store electricity when it is generated by renewables, in order to be able to use it and to guarantee the capacity. Because for electricity, we need to guarantee capacity. When you need electricity, you don't wait the company to generate it. And until now, at home, we are not able to store such energy. Next, please. Now, I will talk about Midelt. Midelt is just a result of such analysis. And the objective is always to reach the best cost of electricity while using at the optimum the technologies. The objective is not in mind to develop technologies, but to develop solutions that are able to respond demand. In Morocco, demand, the higher demand is after sunset, 5 hours after sunset, between, let's say, 7 and 11 p.m. during winter and 8 and midnight during summer. So we need to generate electricity where we don't have sun. And for the first complex, for the Nour complex, Nour complex, we developed CSP for this reason. For Midelt, and as the cost of PV was being reduced fast, without to use PV and CSP in order to be able to respond the same demand using the main interest of each technology. PV will be the best solution during day, while CSP, thanks to thermal storage, can be the best solution during night. And now, and taking into account our demand and the park of production of Morocco, we don't need electricity between midnight and 7 in the morning. The existing mix is able to respond such demand. So we are not allowing generation of electricity between midnight and 7 in the morning. With the power plant is designed only for, let's say, 17 to 18 hours operation during per day. How the project was defined? First, of course, to meet, as I said, Moroccan energy demand. The second was to have the same quality of energy than CSP alone, while reducing the LCOE. The power plant will be operated only during 17 to 18 hours per day, 17 hours during winter and 18 hours during summer. And after analysis, we defined the plant like this way. The PV could be operated only during if the bidder could choose to operate only PV during day or PV and CSP during day. We knew that it was difficult to have PV and CSP during day, but it was up to bidders to propose what they want. The second is that we need CSP during night anyway, but even here there was some, we let it open to any solutions that could be proposed by the developers. The minimum storage capacity was fixed to 5 hours, our need peak hours demand. But here also, bidders could propose more. And of course, the objective of the plant is to generate during night. So 55% of energy have to be generated during peak hours, during these 5 peak hours. The capacity during day could not be more than 1.2 the CSP gross capacity, the guaranteed capacity during night. And in our analysis, the PV DC, PV AC capacity, the ratio between them was 1.4. In the proposal, it was not really different. The results of the project, I will not talk about the design as I said in the beginning. I hope that I will be able to talk about in some months when we will reach closing of the project, financial closing of the project. But until now, I cannot. But the obtained tariff for the solution is 68 cents of dirhams during peak hours, which means about 6.2 cents of euros per kilowatt hours during peak hours, while the average tariff is about 60.4 cents of dirhams per kilowatt hour, which means about 5.5 cents of euros per kilowatt hour. This solution that will be constructed during the next 2 years seems to be able to compete even with coal, which even for what we call conventional electricity mix seems to be the lowest cost of electricity when we are not taking into account the environmental impacts of such technology. So we think now that we can develop renewables that can compete with coal even without taking into account the impacts, the environmental impacts of coal on Earth. Next, please. And I will finish on this slide. One project doesn't mean that we have done it. I think that we need to develop a lot of more projects in order to be sure that the solution is the best solution and that we can have we can guarantee this cost of electricity while developing other power plants. In Morocco, the next step will be to define the ratio between PV and wind, and the sites where we will develop our PV and wind during between 2020 and 2030 in order to guarantee the maximum of usable electricity, taking into account our load curve demand. The second is to launch Noor Midelt 2 in order to confirm the results obtained during Noor Midelt 1. And the third step, and it will be also programmed during the next decade between 2020 and 2030, is to develop a base load renewable power plant with storage that can ensure at least 90% capacity factor, which is the capacity factor of a coal or nuclear power plant, in order to replace a coal power plant, but also to confirm definitely that this technology, these solutions are not technology, can respond demand, can guarantee that renewables are able to respond demand and to continue to develop such projects. It is, I have end my presentation, and I will let Manuel continue. I will let Belen continue and come back to answer questions, if any. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abdurrahim. Yes, many questions while you were talking, but essentially I have two main takeaways here. Is the future is renewable, you know, in your plants in Morocco, and it's all about system level planning by the sounds of things. I'll let Manuel now. Manuel, if you want to take the stage, just unmute yourself and talk to us about the role of the World Bank through these projects and others that you're doing across the region. And I'm specifically interested in what this case can teach to the rest also of the region. So go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to be a little bit briefer than Abdelrahim. Otherwise, we don't have time. We won't have time for the
Yes,
questions.
I would like to have at least 10 minutes for questions and answers. We can take up to an hour, so don't worry. Take your time.
Yeah. So first of all, I would like to congratulate Mase. I mean, this has been a huge achievement. Actually, I have been following very closely the process, not only this one, also the Nour ones, and it's really amazing what these guys have done, how they have stick with this program, which is not normal. You know, so many, we hear about so many solar development programs, and but this guy has really performed what they are committed. I think. The plant that Massen has just awarded, it's an important milestone for the solar industry itself. It's not just because of the hybrid concept that it is, but it's also because it shows that the solar energy as a whole, it can be competitive with conventional renewables, and it can provide all the services needed in a power system. It can provide base load, it can provide peak load, it can provide ancillary services. So I think that's one point that with 100% solar in this case, if we add wind in future stage will be even better. But I think the plan demonstrates that either at plant level or either in a system level with a good system operator, this solar can be a solution for decarbonizing the world. And a very affordable price, you see, competitive with many others. For the bank, for the World Bank, our role here has been to the financiers. So we are financing in a pool of other lenders, as Rahim has said, no? Pool of 7 or 8 lenders. So we are here financing by IBRD loan, and also we are managing CTF funds on behalf of the CTF. No? So I think that's important for the bank because it's I said, it demonstrates that solar can be a solution. It can be also replicated in other places. We know CSP is a little bit more complicated than PV in terms of technology, in terms of the radiation that is needed. So perhaps it can be, in a case-by-case basis, we can see that this solution can be replicated in many other environments. And also it demonstrates that either with concessional funding, in this case, the price can be very affordable, but this is only at the first plant. I mean, this is the first plant, and there is another one in Chile, I think, with the same concept that was completely commercial with a also very affordable tariff. But here, I think is the first plant of this kind that probably in the future the price will go down, and even with commercial funding, that will be very competitive too. So I think that's the important. It still remains for me, and this is something that I have been always thoughts about in the CSP. It's about the need of investment. No, we are seeing that the tariff is very affordable, but it requires a big investment. So this is but it shows that with a good job, with a good design, with bringing stakeholders together and everything, you can actually afford a big investment and get very good tariff. And as I said, the bank is also promoting the knowledge and innovation program, which what we are trying to do is to let know all other countries that have a very good potential for CSP, how these technologies can help them on their power system and how they can achieve the 100% solar or renewable in their system without any sacrifice in terms of cost. So that's the first statement. Perhaps we can enter now in more technical discussion, but I will let you these remaining 20 minutes for questions.
Thank you very much, Manuel. You've been really brief indeed. So we have a lot of questions. I've marked some of them, that I'd like to ask them live. Some of them, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to answer them at this stage. Abdelrahim and Manuel have promised me that once all of the fine detail of this tender is worked out in a few months, they will come back here and actually reply to all of those. Look how Abdelrahim is smiling. That is a promise, that they're coming back. Okay, so here are some of the questions. Okay, so I guess the first question, and these are some of the questions that we had agreed that I think I'd like to highlight. the first one is, why is flexibility and dispatchability key to the long-term renewable program strategy in Morocco? So I think there is a lack of planning and a lack of understanding in many places across the region why this is important. You know, they're thinking if it's cheap or wind is cheap, but there is still not enough people thinking at the system level. You know, I know that you've spoken about it, Abdelrahim, but why is it important?
Yes, so why is it important? It is important because when everybody was connected to this webinar, they didn't wait for someone to generate electricity for them. It was directly generated and they didn't mind even about it. When it is only intermittent energy, and if in the moment when you wanted to connect to this webinar, you couldn't have electricity, it is not what we are looking for. When we generalize it, it is the same thing. When in an industry, you are willing to work some engines, you don't wait for electricity to come. You just have to push a button and it is there. The same case for light home, when you come home every night, just to push and it is there. That's why we need dispatchability. We need to generate electricity at the moment you need it. Because you cannot store electricity like other products home until now. It costs a lot to store electricity home. That's the reason. And we have the utilities have to generate electricity when it is needed. That's why we need flexibility and dispatchability in order to be able to, if we are generating a lot of renewables during one time, to be able to store it and to regenerate this electricity when people are needing it.
And this is on 100% renewables or an increasingly renewable portfolio, right? This is quite clear
Yes.
and easy to understand. Okay, I'm going to jump over some of the questions that we had on the list, because honestly, you've already answered them plentifully.
Belén, if I can step in this question, I mean,
absolutely, of course, Manuel.
Talk about Morocco, but I think, flexibility and dispatchability is a problem everywhere. It's not Morocco.
Yes.
And the lack of planning, it's everywhere. It's not only in Morocco. So we are we have seen in many countries, many very developed countries, how the curtailment of renewable is a problem. And it's becoming even not only problematic from a system point of view, which can be managed by technical tools, but also economically. Economically, we have seen the dramatic decrease on PV cost that now is being jeopardized because due to lack of planning, the cost of PV is not really at system level, is not so cheap actually, because you are curtailing, so you are paying more for the kilowatt hour. So I think flexibility and dispatchability it's key in any power system, of course, not only for Morocco or developing countries.
So it's almost like something that you need to invest on in order to be able to have that cheap power come into the system and to be able to sustain it. I think what Abdelrahim said before is important to note here again. I mean, in this particular project, we're looking at prices that are competitive with the price of coal, but also with flexibility and dispatchability. They're generally base load plant. I think we need to think this over again. We are at a situation where this particular project has gone through that barrier, if you like, or that milestone where we're producing dispatchable, flexible power cheaper than coal. So I just like to go back to that afterwards. But the question that I had, still for now, is a question that is important for us: is why hybridize at the plant level and not at the system level? So there is kind of two approaches, right? You can hybridize in the project. We've seen this, for example, in Chile, in Cerro Dominador, and then we can hybridize at sort of the system level, like we've seen Dubai do. So why choose one over another? Is this specific to your situation or to the particular country, or is there anything to be gained?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. It is a very, very important question. And let's say we can develop energy generation from renewables on one way, and storage on the other way, and without any link between them in order to respond grid. The interesting thing is just to have them connected to grid, and you will store when you are generating from renewables, you will generate from storage when it is needed. It means for at least for our project and for in some cases that you will have to invest in 2 sites first. So there is infrastructure to be developed in 2 different sites. That's one. The second thing is that we will have to invest in grid, to connect to grid. Our power plant, Midelt, is 150 kilometers far from the nearest point of grid we can connect it. So if we have to invest in 2 sites, in 2 grids, that we will use only at 20%. With PV, you will use this grid, this line, only at 20%. It is not interesting. While with CSP, as we will also generate, in our case, only 5 hours, it will mean that we will use grid only during 5 hours per day. So we will have to have 2 sites to construct all infrastructure for 2 sites, roads for the 2 sites, water for the 2 sites, telecommunication for the 2 sites, and grid for the 2 sites, and using grid at a capacity factor of less than 20%, which is not interesting in our case because we are generating our electricity in the same site. It is only solar energy. PV and CSP are only solar energy, and the site is good for them together. We will not do it for PV and wind, for example, else if there is a potential for them together. We don't know what we will do with batteries. It can be done also with batteries, but it can be with batteries. We can have batteries at the city nearest the customer, and we can generate electricity from solar or from wind far from the customers, and then to use storage the nearest from the customers the possible. But it is just choose to have taken into account each case here. The objective is to be able to generate during a long time and to use all the infrastructure at the optimum in order to also to reduce the cost. The cost will be higher if it is 2 different sites. In this case,
it's a cost thing, essentially.
Yeah.
Manuel, do you have anything to add?
No, I think, I think owner, the system operator will be very happy with this concept, much happier than having PV and CSP separated where they have to manage the, so in countries, I mean, for a system operator it's a good thing. But also I think this is a very good, it allows us this exercise, let's say, let's call it exercise of massing. It has helped us to understand what's the real cost of stable generation from solar, which we didn't know actually. Until now, we didn't know exactly what was the cost of supply a system with a very, a profile very similar to the demand, only with solar, CSP and PV, because in all other countries, on other systems, it's mixed with another generation. So for the first time, I think we now have a very good sense of how much can cost, as I said in the beginning, how much can cost to supply, either in a hybrid power plant or in separated plant, integrated at system level. But we have a fairly good idea how much can a system provided only, supplied only with solar can cost.
I would like, sorry, Belen, I would like just to add also that when you have one developer that is operating the power plant will be optimized in order to be used at the right way, also to optimize the cost. It is always cost optimization anyway. While if it is utility that is having 2 power plants, we are not sure, and now taking into account that it is new technologies, that the operation on a country level will be optimized. We are not sure about it. Here we are sure that the developer will use the power plant as it is designed, and they will reach the maximum, the optimum for reaching the best cost, even during operation.
That is a good point. They don't have to worry about external factors in terms when they should or shouldn't operate, and therefore there is no stacking of values in order, to cover that cost for being in reserve, so to speak. Okay, I'm going to take some of the questions from the public because we have about 8 minutes left. And, you've asked again, so I'm going to respond again. I know we can't get into a lot of technical detail, and that can get frustrating. I wish we could, but we're under NDAs, there's negotiations going on, so we need to wait until that has passed. So some of the questions that are marked here, and we have a lot, by the way, I have 38 open questions at the moment, but we're not going to be able to answer just a fraction of those. So one of them says, why does Mazen procure capacity instead of energy? Why doesn't Mazen say in a tender, give me X megawatt hour of solar energy at the following times of day? Why do you choose between technologies, whether it's CSP-PV, molten salts, and batteries to give me the best price? So why don't you allow, so to speak, the developers to pick their own technology?
Here, the reason is simple. We are guaranteeing capacity during night. In PV, in our project PV, we were not asking for capacity. We were asking for energy because we know that PV does not guarantee capacity. And we were asking for energy while limiting capacity that can be injected on grid. So it will depend on our projects. When we are launching intermittent projects and wind, we could ask only for energy without any ask for capacity, knowing that anyway the capacity that will be installed will not be very, very different from the capacity we have ourselves estimated before. But when we are needing capacity, it is for peak hours, and we are needing capacity for peak hours, we will ask for peak hours in our we will ask for capacity in our tenders.
So what you're saying is you're becoming technology agnostic, or you are technology agnostic?
We are technology agnostic, and as I said in the end of the presentation, the next middle project, we will let it open between CSP and batteries, and it will be competition, and the best will win.
On that note, there's a few questions here. Let's say, when is expected to launch the tender of Noor Midelt 2?
Well, it is not only a Mazen decision, because we are launching our tenders taking into account the needs of the country and of our customer, which is ONE. So we are discussing with ONE to know when this power plant will be launched. We have also, of course, as we are changing, we are opening for more solutions. We are taking, at least for batteries, we have to do some studies, of course, in order to be sure that it is feasible. And we will come back to the market when we will be ready with ONE, but it will be launched in, let's say, in the next year or just after. But we will try to launch it as soon as possible, but it should be needed by the grid anyway. We cannot launch a power plant just to have the power plant.
So when you say, just to be more specific, 2020 then, it will launch in 2020, or can we expect it in 2019?
In 2019, I think that it will be difficult, but okay. 2020, I hope so. It is not only a Mazen's decision. I
understand. So 2020 is more realistic.
Yeah.
And I think I have a sense, Abdelrahim, correct me if I'm wrong, that you guys are looking for a little bit more flexibility in terms of how these tenders are and they read, so that you can be more nimble in terms of deciding what's, good for the project.
Yes, we will open more. Just to say, for Noor Midelt 1 already in our tender, there was a requirement concerning parabolic trough, solar tower, all PV technologies, and some specific requirements. It is not, technically, it is not an easy tender anyway. The next tender will be a little bit more complicated. We prefer to complicate our tenders, but to have the best solution, we will have also batteries that we will need to clearly define, and to have the requirements on batteries also. And if we think to other solutions, we will have it also in our next tender. So the next tender will be, let's say, a little bit more complicated for the young team that is accompanying me in this project.
I see. Okay, so we can look forward to more complications. Okay, there is a question here for Manuel. Manuel mentioned ancillary services. What ancillary services will be provided by the Midelt plant? Also, in addition to the per kilowatt hour payment, will capacity payments be provided?
No, as far as I know, but perhaps as far as I know, the plant will not be remunerated for ancillary services. Of course, we have we can react because the plant that's a very have the inertia, so we can regulate frequency and everything, but it's not remunerated because I think the Moroccan system doesn't have this feature, no payment for ancillary services. But even if it's not a value, not a cost, it's a value, no, so for the system.
Do you want to add anything, Abderrahim, or are you happy with that answer?
Yes, I agree with Manuel. Just to say that for a power plant, for CSP power plant, for example, when in Nour, what is that one, when we are generating PV that will cover the auxiliaries needs during day, is to reduce cost of electricity of the complex, of course, but it is not for the developer. It is margin generation, and it is just a compensation between the two technologies. But for ancillary in Morocco, I agree with Manuel. It is not the case until now. It can be the case during the next months, but until now it is not the case, and there is it is a value anyway for the grid.
So we don't have a lot more time, so I'm just going to ask one more question. And I don't know how much you guys can say. So, as a moderator, I have to be careful with what questions I ask because I know certain areas are no-go. But I'm going to ask it and see if it's possible. Here, someone asks, can we have more information about exactly how the hybridization between CSP and PV is done in this particular project? And there is another question a little further along that says, it seems that you're trying to maximize for low price in this particular bid, so why add batteries? So I don't know, they're not connected, these questions, but I'm just going to throw them out there and see what you guys can say to those questions.
Unfortunately, I cannot answer these questions.
Neither of them.
It is the style of design. We will be able to answer this question in some months. And believe me, everything that is used in this plant is really justified. It is not a design that is being done by a public company. They are investors. We analyze, of course, all the proposals, and investors are not doing anything. Investors are just investing when they are sure that it has a value for them and that it will give them value.
Yeah. I understand that that there are certain things that can be, but I hope that at least this project is going to teach us. Maybe we cannot know now, but what are the next projects for solar projects, if you like, going to look like, and what makes sense in terms of mixing these technologies into one. So my last question to the two of you is: do you expect to see more projects like this across the region, across the continent? So, Manuel, you look surprised by the question.
No, I mean, this is it's a very nice question. I mean, but I don't know what to answer. I mean, we are working on some feasibility, some preliminary studies for solar plants, for CSP plants, might be hybrid or not. That's the decision of governments and utilities, but we hope so. I mean, this is promising. We have seen also DIWA plant is promising. I think that the sector is moving towards the right direction in terms of cost and also in performance. So I think that some other countries can follow this lead in the next years or months.
So, Abdulrahim?
For myself, I hope so. It is our baby anyway, and we hope that the baby will greet anyway. Some examples around the world, and Manuel talked about DEWA project. In Chile also, some projects are, let's say, similar, not the same projects, but are similar, which means that in the world, we are beginning to think to hybridization. It is not difficult only for Belém, but also for me, in order to be sure that we are constructing the best mix with renewables for the future. And anyway, if it is separate or on the same region, on the same site, it is not the main interest. The main interest is to be sure that we can use the maximum of renewables on our grid for the next years, and for myself, for my children, and we will win if we can do it.
Well, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to our next one where we can talk about everything. But for now, I'd like to thank you very much for your time. Manuel, thank you very much for joining. Abdelrahim, of course, our superstar, and everyone else that has joined us. And we hopefully be very soon back with you with more information. I have sent a link through the chat with a little two-pager that we've put together at the MENA CSP-PV so that you can have a little bit more information about the project. And we'll send all of this in an email to you and the recordings if you want to check them again. Thank you very much and see you soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.